Welcome, this is the February episode of our series, The Self-Sufficient Year. And because it's February, it's the last month of winter and it's final preparation time for the growing season in spring.
Hello, welcome to English Country Life. Welcome to a lovely misty day in rural Lincolnshire. We love these sea fogs when they roll in off the wash. It's really atmospheric, kind of like Charles Dickens in Great Expectations. It's fantastic weather, really atmospheric. My name's Hugh, and together with my lovely wife Fiona, we run a small holding in this rural Lincolnshire. And this video is part of our series, The Self-Sufficient Year. And we're looking at what we've been up to in February. We've got some great stuff to show you. Our wonderful friend Oliver, who's a tree surgeon, has sourced us some hardwood oak wood chippings, which are perfect for the flock down chicken enclosures. Now we have to take that when he's doing jobs that provide the right kind of resources, and he has. And he's even got some logs for us, which are oak, which will be perfect for the wood burner. On top of that, we're going to look at the seeds that I sowed last month, and they're up and we need to single them up, and we do that slightly differently thanks to Bob Flowerdew that other people do, and it's a better way of singling up the seeds that you've grown, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Fiona is finishing off pruning the soft fruit, so she's doing the gooseberries and the currants, and she's doing the currants in this improvised fruit cage that we made last year, but we are doing something different with that space this year, so we've got some exciting announcements upcoming on that. And finally, we're into the endless maintenance of living in an old listed property, and we're going to talk a little bit about the skills that make small holding possible in that way.
We've taken delivery of another load of rounds of logs and hardwood wood chippings from a friendly neighbourhood tree surgeon. Now we are incredibly lucky with that wonderful man who supplies these goods to us. With the cost of living crisis, we are paying still only a tiny amount, a small nominal amount for these items that he brings us. We do top it up with barter goods as well. So we give him bacon we've made, or apples we've grown, or vegetables from the garden, and it works really, really well. And we are grateful because we know he could sell these for far, far more than he is charging us, and we are also very happy to pay him. It's the hardwood wood chippings which are most important to us at the moment. And why is that? Well, we do use it as a mulch in the garden, so on the flower beds and in some of the vegetable beds. But right now we are in flock down in the UK, so that means our chickens legally have to be kept in fully netted enclosures or indoors. And we've got them in a netted enclosure. Now they've destroyed every blade of grass in that enclosure completely, and that means if it rains it can turn into a bit of a quagmire, so the hardwood wood chippings stop it being very, very muddy. Now it is hardwood that we need and not softwood. And why is that? Well, the bark of softwood can harbour some fungus, and that means that it could cause respiratory issues or even skin conditions for the chickens. And we need it to be leaf free too, because as the leaf rots down it can actually again harbour mould, so we don't want that in there. And our tree surgeon is very, very specific and knows what we want. And the other thing he makes sure is that what he brings us is thorn free. So it comes from some trees which is harvested, which aren't of a thorny variety and don't have dog roses or other thorny bushes growing around them too. And this is why we need that hardwood wood chip to be thorn free. The chickens are scratching at it and moving it around, and if there's any thorns in there it could actually get embedded in their feet, become infected and cause something called bumblefoot, so we want to avoid that. But it means also, because they're scratching away at it, I don't need to spread it out, so it saves me a huge job. All I have to do is pile up the hardwood wood chip into great big piles. They'll scratch at it, move it around. I don't have to rake it out. Saves me a job, saves my back, and they're entertained for hours on end. Well, I'm moving all of the wood chip. Hugh is moving all of the rounds of logs. To do that, he's got his pickaroon, which is essentially a long handle with a spike on the end, and that helps him roll the logs onto a sack truck. And of course, the sack truck is completely invaluable because those rounds are incredibly heavy.
Look, Chillies. Doesn't that make you think of spring? Come on, doesn't it make you think the world's warming up, it's going to get better? We got chillies, we only planted them last month. But this is why I like to plant things like chillies and peppers early, get them off to a racing start. We've got to now do some maintenance work to turn these into really good plants. They're 2 or 3 inches tall, they're doing really well, but we need to grow them on. So they don't need to be in the heated propagator anymore. The heat was there to germinate them. They've germinated, so we don't need any more of that. So what I'm going to do is move them into a normal seed tray with a cover, an unheated seed tray with a cover. Now, word of warning, what you need to do is pick a seed tray that hasn't got holes in it. Normally seed trays are great to have drainage holes, but if you're going to put them on a windowsill and then water them, you really don't want drainage holes dripping water all over your nice wooden windowsills. Ask me how I know. Yeah. So we're going to do that, then we're going to move them to an upstairs window. But before we do that, I need to single up all the different chillies in the modules. Now, I said last month, don't put too many seeds in each module because that becomes an absolute pain. And I only generally put 2 or 3 in each module, but honestly, we've got really good germination in this one. So I still need to remove a number. Now, what I used to do was just get hold of the ones I didn't want and pull them up. But what that can do is actually disturb the roots of the ones you do want, particularly if you've left it a little bit too long, as I sometimes do, and the roots have become quite developed. Now, a few years ago, I saw a little thing, I think it was Bob Flowerdew that said it, which was, don't even bother pulling them up. Just go in with a sharp pair of scissors, snip off the ones you don't want. And that will make it much, much better, and you don't risk either damaging the stems or the roots of the plants that are going to remain. So that's how I do it now, and I have found it works really well. It does take perhaps a little bit longer, but you do damage less plants. So having singled them all up, the other thing I need to worry about is I've got a couple in here that have got weird leaves that look a bit like parsnips. And the reason they look a bit like parsnips is that they're parsnips. And I think that's because when I was saving all my parsnip seed, I left a couple of them on the potting tray, and when I mixed up my potting mix to go into these, I think I pretty much caught a couple of parsnip seeds with it by mistake. My mistake, we need to remove them. They're not going to give us many chillies. So we'll do that. Once all that's done, pop a cover on, upstairs, south facing bedroom window, and we'll grow them on further.
In last month's video, you would have seen Hugh pruning the apple trees, and I was doing work on the raspberry and blackberry canes in the fruit cage. But the pruning doesn't stop there. We still have to carry on with the gooseberry bushes and the currant bushes to make sure that they are going to produce the most amount of fruit that we could possibly get. Now, this is the gooseberry bed, and the first thing to notice is there's no netting on this area. And why is that? Well, the gooseberry plants themselves are incredibly thorny, and that means we are very, very unlikely to lose any fruit to the local wild birds. I know I hear other people do lose fruit, but we don't seem to lose any at all. So I'm very grateful that we've never had to net it over. Now, the bushes themselves need to be pruned into a bowl shape. That's what I do. And why is that? Well, there's 2 reasons. The first is I want to be able to get that fruit without hurting myself. And granted, I will use very thick gloves when I'm actually harvesting the fruit. But the second thing is that it's that air circulation. We need lots and lots of air circulation around the fruit. Otherwise, they get some kind of, it's like a mildew fungus, and it rots the fruit very, very quickly. So I want to make sure there's very good air circulation and that fungus is less likely to take hold. Now, you might be thinking, what is actually used as a mulch on this area, because it's very light coloured? Well, it's actually soiled chicken bedding, and it works really, really well. Because the gooseberry bushes are hardwood, it means that we've got no delicate shoots actually coming through that mulch. So there's no delicate shoots hitting that raw poop from the chickens. But it means that the nitrogen is actually gradually brought into the soil through the rain over time. So it becomes a very, very nutritious mulch for the plants, and it really does work well. We've had no end of very good fruit, and it also means that we have got what we call a closed loop ecosystem. So the chickens are providing the mulch and the fertiliser for the berries. They get some of the fruits off the bushes as well. They produce more poop, and so the cycle continues, and it works really, really well. Now, this isn't the only area that I've been pruning. I've also been pruning the currants, so let's have a look at that. And this is where we've got the currants. So in here we've got black currants, white currants and red currants. And the first thing to notice is it is a fully netted enclosure. Now, why are they netted? Well, unlike the gooseberry bushes, which have lots and lots of thorns, currants don't. They are completely thornless. So as soon as the blossom forms, as soon as the fruit forms, birds are going to be in there stealing all of that fruit as soon as it's available. So we've got to have net over it. Now, pruning the currant bushes, what I've tried to do, just like the gooseberries, is form that classic bowl shape, and that means I can easily get access to the fruit when it forms. And we're less likely to get any fungus forming on the plant itself, which could ruin that fruit. Now, this year I've actually pruned the fruit bushes really, really severely. So normally what I'd be doing is only taking a third of the branch length out and leaving 2/3 there. But what I've done this year is cut them right down. And I know I'm going to get less currants, but why have I done that? Well, there's a very, very good reason. We're getting a new fruit cage. This cage we actually built from a really, really cheap domestic polytunnel frame structure, and we've covered it with heavy duty bird netting, and it worked for a while, but these frames aren't built to last, and it started to rust severely, so it needs to come down because it's not going to last forever. It's failing. We've had a brainwave though. You might have remembered in some of our chicken videos that we have a Garden Life Direct walk-in run, which we use for a brood run over a brood coop. And Frankie raised her chicks in there, Licorice raised her chicks in there, and it worked really well during the season. But it's a really robust structure, and it's got metal mesh around the sides. I'll put a review up above the link to the review video so you can have a look and see what we're talking about. Now, we thought, how does that compare to a commercial fruit cage? So we had a look at the prices of commercial fruit cages, and we do have a commercial fruit cage around the raspberries and blackberries, and we were surprised to find that the price differential was minimal. So we thought, well, why would we buy a commercial fruit cage which has got plastic meshing around the side, which rabbits can gnaw through, rats and rodents can gnaw through, and potentially we've got to constantly keep an eye on that mesh. We do have a rabbit problem in this area, and we do lose some fruit because rabbits create holes and get in and steal the fruit. And the Garden Life Direct, because it's got the metal mesh, actually means that that's not going to be a problem. We don't have to worry about that. So this structure is going to be coming down shortly, and we've hard pruned these currant bushes to give us room to work. That's the only reason. Now, this structure is going to come down, and we've got a 4 metre wide by 8 metre long Garden Life Direct walk-in run going in its place, which is going to be used as a fruit cage. So next month you should be able to see this coming down, and hopefully then the brand new cage going up. Now, to be honest, because of time, we may not be able to do it in March. It might be April, but the fruit's not going to be formed on these currant bushes for a number of months after that. But we think that was a great brainwave.
At the beginning of the video, we mentioned we had more maintenance to do, and it's a good illustration of some of the mindset you need in order to be kind of self-reliant, to be a smallholder, and to do all the things you can for yourself. Now, this is a really minor job. One of the light switches in the kitchen is gone. That's all it is, and it needs replacing. Now, we looked online, what would it cost to get an electrician out to do that? And the website we looked at said anything from £50 to £300. Now, around here, it would definitely be the lower end of that estimate, but we've bought a replacement light switch for £6.50, and we can do it ourselves. And the only tools you need to replace something like this are a couple of screwdrivers. Now, in the UK, to have major electrical works done, it has to be signed off by a qualified electrician for safety reasons, but minor like-for-like replacements any competent person can do. And I know a lot of people get nervous about doing electrical work, but seriously, all we're talking about is 2 screws in the front and some little terminal screws inside, and all the terminals are clearly labelled live, neutral, etc. It is a very straightforward task to do, and we can do it for £6.50 rather than 50 quid. All we do, turn the power off at the distribution unit, unscrew the old switch from the wall, undo the terminals to release the wires, and then reverse it. We'll put the wires into the new switch, checking carefully they're going into the right terminal, and then screw the switch back in place. Turn the power back on at the distribution unit, and we're good to go.
That's our February episode of the series The Self-Sufficient Year, and hopefully next month we're not going to be bundled up in so many coats, big scarves and thermal boots, and all of this sea fog will have rolled away back to the sea, but you never know, we're just going to have to see how things go. If you have liked this content, take a moment and give us a thumbs up down below. If you're not already a subscriber to the channel, hit subscribe and the bell icon and you'll get to know of every new video as soon as it goes live, and that's a completely free service. If you have got a question for us, don't be shy, stick it in the comment section and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But for now, thanks for watching and we look forward to seeing you next time, and that's goodbye from DeWalt too.